I stayed where I was until my event planning business got to a point where I don't have time to go to work, which is great. I don't have time to go to my 9 to 5. And so from there, I left that full-time job and went and pursued a job that knew that I was looking to pursue this event planning business. And so I had left there and went and managed a rental shop that obviously focused in event rentals. And they knew at the time of hiring me that I wanted to grow my event planning business, but that this would be a job that would better complement that job, that goal, than maybe a 9 to 5 PR job at a bank.
Hey everybody, this is Eddie Babbage, founder, CEO of Timeline Genius, your host here of the Wedding Industry Insider Podcast, back with another great episode for you. I'm here with Gavin Snyder. Gavin is the founder of Gavin Snyder Events, a luxury wedding and event planning company based in the southeast of the United States. And Gavin just launched a sister company, Evergreen, which focuses on floral designs for events. Gavin has been in the business for years, and we're going to get into his story, the things that he's learned that have allowed him to achieve success. And yeah, Gavin, welcome to the show. Thanks for doing this with me.
Thank you, Eddie, for having me. Looking forward to chatting all things weddings and events today.
I'm excited. It was great chit chatting in the pre interview. And I think you've got some really interesting and valuable insights to share with people, especially our wedding planners that are listening. Before we get into that, Gavin, will you just tell everybody in your own words a sort of summary of your background and how you got to be where you currently are in the industry?
I would absolutely love to. So I am 32 years old. I like to preface that because what I'm about to tell you spans over a decade of that. So 32 years old. I originally grew up in Mobile, Alabama, South Alabama, right there on the port. Always had a love for events all throughout middle school and high school, as every I feel like event and wedding planner did. Went to college in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, at the University of Southern Mississippi, where I studied communication and marketing. But I always say that my true major in college was event planning, was very involved in all the on-campus activities, the prep rallies, student organizations. And that was really my bread and butter of where my love and experience of events really blossomed and grew, was in college. After college, I was recruited by Marriott Hotels and moved down to New Orleans, where I worked in event operations and reservations for about a year. After a year of that work, I relocated back home to my hometown of Mobile, Alabama. Worked at a history museum where I did marketing and events for the museum, but it also doubled as a venue, and so that is really where I got my feet wet into weddings. Not only managing a venue that served weddings and events, but also dabbling in some coordination myself, and also working in tourism for the city of Mobile. After that job, I relocated to Jackson, Mississippi, worked in state government for a little bit before I took a job as the director of PR for a large bank here in Jackson, Mississippi. And so did that for a couple of years, really got to know the corporate side of event planning. It was at that job where the idea of an event and wedding planning company of my own came to fruition. So started Gavin Snyder Events in 2019. Great year to start an event planning company right before COVID. But started that business and it grew from there. And so obviously, didn't dive in full time. So always had some part-time jobs while my business grew. Some of those part-time jobs included managing rentals at a luxury rental shop here in Mississippi. And then from there, transitioned to managing a luxury venue here in downtown Jackson, Mississippi as well, before launching full time into this business in 2024. So all that to say, I'm 32 years old, graduated from college at 21. So after a decade of different odds and end jobs, I'm very thankful to be where I'm at today and in a position to really serve my clients successfully because of all my background experience over a decade. So really been going at this for, like I said, a decade now. So we're really excited about where Gavin Snyder Events is now in the event and wedding planning world. And as you mentioned, and in my introduction, we just launched the sister company of Gavin Snyder Events, Evergreen, which is a floral design company, not only servicing events, but also serving as an everyday luxury floral shop here in our city. So super excited about that experience. And it's really one of those things that makes me who I am today.
Thank you for giving the great recap there. I know it's always hard to like condense years and years of life experience into like, a couple minutes, but um, so you touched on something there, Gavin. I love this podcast because I believe that everybody in this industry can learn something from everybody else, right? And to get somebody, you and the other, amazing guests we've had on here for an hour where I can just really dig into your story and lift up the things that have helped you be successful as you have to date. And you touched on something that I definitely want to dive into, which is your background in communications. Can you talk a little bit more about what you studied, and let's start to talk about how you've leveraged that
Yeah.
in your career.
Yeah, and so, like I touched on in my kind of brief synopsis, I always had a joy for events in high school. Just as most, I would say, people in this industry started off doing student government or some sort of organization when they were younger. And so from there, I knew before going to college, which I'm very thankful for, I knew before going to college that I wanted to be an event planner. I knew that I wanted to, whether it be working for a company or have my own company, I knew that it was a passion of mine that I wanted to achieve. And so, when going to college, there isn't many quote unquote majors that directly impact the event planning world. But for me, from doing a little bit of event planning in high school leading up into college, I knew that one of the key factors into being a successful planner of events is communication. And so in college, I studied, my major was communication studies with a minor of marketing. The minor of marketing is pretty clear. That's everybody's pretty familiar with that. But one thing to kind of hone on in for my major of communication studies is that was not like broadcast journalism. That was not, reading a teleprompter and, giving, those types of interactions with people. It was more so the study of the science of communication. And so a lot of the classes that we focused on in school was interpersonal communication, how you hold your body open versus closed, public speaking, how to give a speech to, 10 people in a room or 1,000. And so I really do think that it was those educational opportunities that I had in college to be able to learn how to communicate properly on an interpersonal level and a mass media level, which has truly, influenced my business tremendously. So, you think about when you're an event and wedding planner, there are so many sometimes easy conversations you're having, but so many hard conversations you're having as well. And having that knowledge and that educational background to know how to communicate with certain individuals to in order to achieve whatever it is that I'm looking to achieve in that moment has been unmeasurable and so valuable for me. So I think being able to study the science behind communication and learning how to put the best foot forward in the room has been a huge advantage for me in my business.
How would you break down the value of kind of the one-on-one interpersonal benefits versus it's funny because when we were talking in the pre-interview and I asked you kind of like what's your superpower, right? I think we all have things that we were created and just we have certain talents, things that we do that other people find hard, and we're just breezing through it, right?
Yeah.
And we all have things that are like more difficult for us. It sounds like for you, this communications and PR element of business has been a more natural play, especially given your education. I'm almost wondering though, how much of it is like the public, like
Mhm.
mass sort of PR articles versus one on one? Like, where's the real sort of juice?
Yeah, honestly, I would say it's 50-50. I don't think one's more
Mm.
important than the other. And I do think it's something that, as event and wedding professionals, I see all the time, my fellow cohorts or people that I've run into in the community from across our country. It's something that we struggle with. I think, a lot of times you have creatives who are so creative, they don't know how to communicate, or vice versa. You have people that are such great communicators, but they don't have that creative side to them. And so I think having that balance is such a huge point. And so to answer your question, I think both are tremendously at play. The mass communication comes in hand when you're talking about your business and you're promoting your business. It's all about, a majority of our success has come from word of mouth. We can put ads out there all day and we can post videos and reels on social media as much as we want to, but at the end of the day, it's not about what people see, it's about how you've made them feel. And so I think that, leveraging both sides of those communication paths, from one, the mass media standpoint of how you portray yourself online and the opportunities that you choose to take, and how, when you're planning an event, how are you taking care of that client so that the people who are attending their event feels taken care of as well. All of that to me goes hand in hand on that management side. Vice versa, on the smaller interpersonal side, working from, as a planner to the client, whether it's a corporate client or a wedding planning client, it's so important to be able to listen to what your client is saying and be able to offer them solutions instead of just regurgitating information of what they've already told you back. So I think that both of those avenues go hand in hand. There's not one, to me, in my opinion, that's more juicier than the other. I think it takes two to tango. And so I think having that balance in your business is of the utmost importance. And I have yet to see a business that does not leverage both of them be successful.
That makes sense. And Gavin, what would you say to people who, maybe they studied something else and their background is in another field? If
Yeah.
you could give them just some tips, and I know we could probably spend a whole podcast
Yeah. Yeah.
talking just about this, but if you were just kind of helping some of your, colleagues and other planners out here, what would you tell them to do to start harnessing the value of, this communication strategy that you have?
That's a great question, because I do think it's one thing that I'm truly blessed that I had the knowledge, or I had the accessibility to these types of, degree, this type of degree to benefit my business. But there are a lot of my cohorts out there that may have studied something else before finding their passion in events. And
Of
so my
course.
biggest piece of advice for those people is just be yourself. It is very clear to a lot of individuals in our market when they can see something as a lie and they can see something as a truth. And I think that,
Hmm.
as great as a communicator as you can be, being yourself is truly the most important thing, because clients see that and they feel at home when they can look at you and know that you're being completely honest with them. And what does that mean to be yourself? I know that seems like a very vague answer, but I'm talking about when you're working with individuals in your business, it's admitting when you're right and it's admitting when you're wrong. It's admitting when, there may be something that you're not super comfortable with, that your client has put in front of you. It's telling them, hey, this is not something I'm super familiar with, but let me go figure this out, because this is where I'm putting my best foot forward for you. So, you don't have to be this mass communicator and be able to stand in front of 1,000 people and talk about why your business is great and why that this event should go this way versus this way. I think at the end of the day, it's just being yourself and being confident in who you are as an individual, but also the business that you are offering to those that you are serving. And, if you have that confidence, it will take you full on into what you're looking to do. There's a lot of businesses out there, I will say, though, that don't have that confidence. And if you feel like when you're starting to put yourself in these situations and you don't have that confidence, I think it's one of those things where, as a business owner, we have to reevaluate ourselves. If you're not confident in something in yourself, why should your client or prospective client be confident in you to carry it out? So I see that all the time, not only with, the people that I work with, but also sometimes within myself. Something that I struggle with till this day of, hey, if I don't feel comfortable about something, am I doing what I need to be doing? Am I putting myself out there for people to trust me if I can't trust myself? And so I think that, not being a mass communicator is the goal. It's more so just being a confident communicator, and being confident in yourself and being confident in your business. And I think that's something that you will see your clients or prospective clients really learn to appreciate. And that's when you'll see those dots start to connect.
That makes sense. It's funny. I'm probably going to come back to this notion of, PR and communication, Gavin,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I do want to kind of go into another sort of part of the story that you shared, which is this transition from being part time to being full time. I
Yeah.
know that's something that a lot of people, especially, in the early stages, they're like, I have this passion. I can't necessarily just cut the cords to income and just jump
Right.
into full time doing my thing. So I do this sort of transition. Can you talk a little bit about how that worked for you and
Yeah.
what allowed you to ultimately take the full plunge?
Yeah, so that is a great question. It's one that I never actually have been asked. And now that I'm sitting here kind of reflecting back on it, it's kind of crazy to think, how all this came into fruition. But, for me, it was one of those things. I had a good full-time job. I was working in PR for a major bank here in the Southeast. Absolutely loved it. But there was something in me that kept, showing me this other path of mine in a potential new business. And I saw there was a huge need in the Southeast for comparable event and wedding planners. And so for me, obviously you could jump right full force into it. Those who have that financial support, go ahead at it. But for me, and like most individuals that are in this business, you can't just afford to quit your 9 to 5 job and hope that clients start pouring in. And so how I did it is, I kept with my full-time job. I started taking on clients as time allowed. And so for me, it was a natural progression. I had my full time job. I took on my first couple of clients. Obviously, when you're starting a business, you may not be charging the rate that you're wanting to charge. That's part of
Mm-hmm.
the growing and acquiring new businesses. You have to be affordable to get people in the door. And so, for me, it was charging a rate that felt appropriate. That also felt worthwhile for me, for somebody who already had a full time job. It wasn't an income I was depending on, but it was an income that I was working to build a business. And so starting at a lower
Mm-hmm.
rate, being able to get clients in the door and gain that experience and gain that confidence in our market here, and say, okay, Gavin and his team has got, 2 weddings under their belt. They got 5 weddings under their belt. They have 15 weddings under their belt. And so, after a year or so of doing this, as business kind of naturally kept coming in from word of mouth, I couldn't do my 9 to 5 job anymore. And so that was kind of
Gotcha.
my natural progression. Is I stayed where I was until my event planning business got to a point where I don't have time to go to work, which is great. I don't have time to go to my 9 to 5. And so from there, I left that full-time job and went and pursued a job that knew that I was looking to pursue this event planning business. And so I had left there and went and managed a rental shop that obviously focused in event rentals. And they knew at the time of hiring me that I wanted to grow my event planning business, but that this would be a
Mm-hmm.
job that would better complement that job, that goal, than maybe a 9 to 5 PR job at a bank. And so started with them with the intention of, hey, this is my goal in the long run. And I'm just here in the meantime to help you guys out while I grow my business. Started doing that. And then again, the business kept growing and growing as businesses do. And so I could no longer sit at a desk and take rental orders. So then that transitioned me into, let me go manage a venue where I can control my schedule and I can control when I'm giving tours and I can control when I'm meeting with people about final walkthroughs for their events while still growing my business. And so that kind of worked hand in hand until we got to the point a couple of years ago where, hey, my business is now at a spot where I'm charging a fee and I'm charging a rate that feels appropriate to support me full time and my team members. But then now, I've gotten to a point of evaluating, hey, does the time that I put into this part-time, maybe full-time role equal the time if I were to put it into my own business, the value of that? And so for me, it was assessing those two different situations of, hey, I could stick with my event planning job and managing this venue job and make this guaranteed money per year, or the time I'm spending on this venue job, if I were to leave that and divert all that time into my business, what does that look like? And does that give me more potential to do more events, or more potential to focus on marketing efforts and growing that business? And so it was a leap of faith, obviously, as everything you do in business sometimes is, but it was the best decision I could have ever made, because I took that time of answering the phone and giving tours and, eventually working to, it was a commission-based job with that venue of selling the property, to now taking that time that I spent per week into my own business and focusing on those clients and offering maybe a higher level of service in the event and wedding planning world, so that I could charge more and bring on more people into my team. And so anyways, that was, in hindsight of the last, 3 or 4 years, that was kind of that natural progression of finding jobs that complement your workload, and finding jobs that complement what your goals are for that business in the long run. And, I think for a lot of people, I fortunately, was able to position myself and land on the other end and do this full time, where I do feel like there are a lot of people who maybe start their own event playing business, and maybe it's something that after doing it for a couple of years, they realize it's maybe not the best decision for them. So having that job allows them to kind of weigh out those options. But for a lot of people, I think it's a valuable thing because they can focus on their business and grow that while still not letting the stress of everyday finances and things like that overwhelm them. So all that to say, to answer your question, I think it was important for me to be able to keep that work-life balance, but also still being able to pay the bills when they came in. So
I love that, Gavin. I think, there are a few things. First of all, I've never actually been a wedding planner. I've served more planners than I can count and love the profession and the people doing it, but I've never been one. But what I am through and through is an entrepreneur. And
yeah,
that is kind of like this like invisible thing that I feel like I share with, a lot of people, they get into wedding planning and they don't realize it, but you're also an entrepreneur now. Like you are a business owner, you're a CEO, and that element of what you just described, like that entrepreneurial spirit, just comes through. Like it's not easy, it's not linear, like A, then B, then C. Like it's a circuitous path, but
right.
like you had the will and you found the way to get to the point where you're doing your passion full time. And I like for other people to hear that, depending on where they are in the journey. It may resonate with them, it may just inspire them. And it also highlights, Gavin, everybody's got their own sort of path, and I think yours was very logical. Did you still reach a point where, when you made that final sort of the final step to just like, no, I'm just doing my own thing?
Yeah.
Was it scary? Or,
Oh, of
but
course.
yeah.
Of course, yeah, it's always scary when you're putting yourself out there. I think that's something that, as many rooms and situations that I've been in, there's always that fear of rejection or that fear of uncertainty of, I've been doing this for 5 years now. Is this really what I think it is? And so definitely, I think that that's something that it's a good fear. I think fear is good because it means that you care. If somebody doesn't have fear in something that they're doing, unpopular opinion, I think it's because they don't care enough. And so for me, there's sometimes every day that I wake up, I won't say there's fear, but there's a sense of, hey, I need to be on my A game because at any moment, especially in this industry, at any moment things can change. And so luckily in the event planning and a wedding planning world, for most of us, I feel like, and for those that are listening, I laugh and joke all the time with my friends and colleagues, is I'm in a unique perspective because I know at least a year out if my business is going to go to the wayside. Because
Yeah.
weddings and things like that, they're booking a year out. And so, I can look at the year of 2026 and also start looking at the year of 2027 currently and see that I'm booking clients in 2027. So it's like, okay, I'm still rocking and rolling. I'm still relevant. People still like what I'm doing. But when you're putting your first step out there on your own and you're putting all your eggs in one basket, it's pretty scary. And so my piece of advice is just surround yourself with people who not only care about you but care about your business. And I think that was something that was advantageous for me. I was blessed enough with a husband who understood my dreams, understood my passions, and not only, supported me emotionally, but also from a workload standpoint. I have a lot of friends
Mhm.
who have been there along the journey, all the way from high school, all the way to where I'm at now, who have seen the work I've put in and have seen the weekends that I've missed with them, because I've been
Mhm.
serving and working for somebody else. And so it was those people to me that gave me the most encouragement of, hey, I know sometimes you got your head down and you're working and you're grinding to get to the next step, but us as your friends and us as your family and as your spouse, like, we see what you're doing, we value what you're doing, and we are here to tell you as people who are in this realm or who are in this customer base to let you know, like, you have the confidence, you have the skill set, go and do it. And if and when, or hopefully not, if you do fall, we'll be there to pick you up and put you right back on track. And so my
Mm.
biggest piece of advice for those individuals who are maybe in that window of possibly trying to take that next step is rely on your tribe. You hopefully have people around you who love and support you, and it's those people that are going to be the ones that make the hard days easy, and they're going to be the ones that give you that assurance and give you that confidence that you are on the right track and that what you're doing is meaningful and that it does matter. Because I do feel like a lot of times as wedding planners, we get this rap of we're just so in the clouds and we're just trying to be wedding planners because it's one of those things that seems like a glorified job and you get to dress up and be in pretty rooms, when at the end of the day, it's not like that all the time. There's a lot of long days, there are a lot of hard hours of blood, sweat, and tears, literally blood, sweat, and tears that happens in this industry. And so I think being able to have that strength and being able to have that support from your family and friends, but also you yourself having the confidence to take that leap is the most important thing. And I know that I've touched on confidence and all that for like this whole podcast so far, but if somebody is listening to this, I hope that's something they take home, is that, your success does rely on others, but at the beginning of the day, it also starts with you.
As a wedding planner, you know how important it is to create detailed wedding day timelines for your events. But creating your timelines can be a tedious and time-consuming job. Until now. Because Timeline Genius lets you create beautiful, detailed wedding day timelines with ease. And it keeps everything you need on the wedding day in one central place. Here's how it works. First, Timeline Genius saves all your clients, vendors, and venues in your Rolodex, so you don't lose time looking for their information. And when you're ready to create a new timeline, you simply enter the key information for your wedding. Click a button, and voila! Timeline Genius magically gives you a customized timeline for your event, where all the details are laid out and the times are calculated for you. From there, you can easily edit your timeline by adding or deleting items, inserting images, changing font styles, and customizing everything to your liking. You can also instantly shift the times for as many items as you want. And when it comes to your clients and vendors, Timeline Genius lets you give them the highest level of service. You can send them tailored timelines, showing only the items they're involved in. And you can collaborate by inviting them to a mobile-friendly, web-based version of the timeline. You can even set text message reminders to automatically go out on the wedding day. And once you've completed your perfect timeline, you can download it or email it out as a beautifully styled PDF. And that's Timeline Genius, a smart software that will help take your wedding planning to the next level. Start your free trial today.
Yeah, it's funny. You've said these words that just kind of are like a collage in my mind, like faith, the step, and it makes me think of a beautiful quote by Dr. Martin Luther King, where he said, "You don't have to see the whole staircase; just take the first step." I think there is this, there is just this element of like a faith that like I can do this. Like I'm not going to fall on my face, and you know what? Even if I do fall on my face, because you will sometimes, I'm going to get back up, right? And so for you, Gavin, you were just very transparent about this is not an easy job, right? I mean, I don't know that there are any jobs that are just super easy, but this is definitely, being a business owner, being a planner, these are challenging. Blood, sweat, tears. Like for you, where does the drive come from to do all this? Is it simply like, this is what I enjoy and that's the drive? Like, where does the fire come from in Gavin Snyder that gets you to jump through all these hoops and to get where you've already gotten with your business?
You asking that question, you can't see it on camera or through the listening, but I have chills that just went up and down my arm when you asked that, because it's something that's never really been asked, why I do what I do. And for me, do I enjoy it? Yes, it's fun. It's one of those jobs where you sometimes get instant gratification of a job well done from your clients. But for me, it goes a little bit deeper than that. I think for me, it's being a part of so many special and pivotal moments in people's lives is just unmeasurable. And it's something that, other professions will never be able to obtain. And as a wedding planners, we are positioned in such a way to make those moments so pivotal and so special for people. My thing that I always say to a lot of people when talking about my line of work is that events make the world go around. When you look back on your life, your past, your current, and potentially your future, you look and think about your life in terms of events. Events aren't just weddings. They're birthday parties. They're nights out with friends. They're, the solo dinner with your spouse at night. There's all these little events that build up your timeline of your life when you're looking back and when you're meditating on what you're doing now. And as wedding planners, we hold the keys to those events. We hold the keys to so many specialist events. And so for me, what gives me the drive is having a client come to me and say, hey, I've fallen in love. I want to get married. This is my spouse. This is our dream. This is our vision. And for me, it's always, I'll always make the room pretty. That's our job, is to make the room an experience wonderful, not only for the clients, but for the guests that get to attend the weddings. But for me, I always tend to focus with every single one of my clients on bringing it back to the message of why are we having a wedding? And it's because two people have fallen in love. They decided to commit their lives to one another, and they're building a life together. And this wedding is not only a sacramental ceremony of that union, but it's also a celebration of two families and friends coming together for one common cause, which is that couple. And so for me, my drive isn't the being able to come in and spend all the clients' money on all these pretty things in the room. It's being able to create that atmosphere for celebration and to create that atmosphere for a memory and milestone in these couples and in these clients' lives, that when they think back on their life and they think about their wedding, I was a small part of it. And to me, that is what gives me that joy and what gives me that drive to wake up every day and to stay on phone calls for 2 hours past time and to work until 11 o'clock in the morning to pull this design deck together for a client, because I know that's going to be something that's impactful for them and also their family and friends. And so to me, it's an emotional drive. I think that's a lot of things that the market itself and weddings really needs to get back to the gut of. I feel like every time I scroll on social media these days and I talk to other wedding industry professionals, it's all about keeping up with the Joneses. And for me, and I hope that people listen to this, if they are not in this realm, that they take this to heart, is let's bring weddings and let's bring events and planning back to the core of why we're doing this. And it's love, and it's the marriage, and it's the union, and it's the celebration, and it's the milestone moments that make up a life. And so I encourage everybody listening and those in the industry to really think about that and think about, when they look at their business, what is their mission? What are they accomplishing? Is it to do so many weddings a year and to make so much money, or is it to celebrate your clients in a meaningful and creative way? And it's that intention that gives me that drive to wake up every day and create those celebrations for people.
I love that on so many levels, Gavin. I feel like, not to be, religious or any, like, but I've said just my view, and people can think whatever they want. In my view, wedding planning is God's work. I mean, I didn't realize this before getting into, and again, I forget
Right.
dogma and labels. I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like, you can call it sacred work. Like, you are at, I mean, I can reflect on my own wedding, and especially now. I mean, I got married back in 2010, so I can see I've got years to kind of look back on, like, what did that mean? The ripple effects of that event
Right.
for our family here, past and present and future, right? Like, it really is profound, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful. And you said it. It comes down to love,
Yeah.
and I think people, hopefully that resonates with everybody doing this work, and everybody's going to have their own orientation and personal sort of reasons for getting out of bed in the morning. But what you just described, I like the way you put it. It's like, that's the core, that's this foundation that hopefully everybody is in touch with that. What for you, Gavin, is what's one of the biggest challenges that you've experienced in your business? Yeah, yeah. What's one of the biggest challenges that you've had to
How long
overcome?
you got? I'm kidding. No. I would say, throughout the years, there's always going to be a hurdle, and there's always going to be a struggle or a con, depending on where you're at in your business. But to answer this question freshly right now, for me, a biggest struggle that I've had recently is just is education. Obviously, my company, we serve the Southeast United States. That is, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, Florida. And the market that we're in tends to be a part of the country that tends to fall behind on trends, or tends to fall behind on different statistics, whatever it may be in the world. And so for me, our biggest struggle has been just education, educating people on the standards of an event and how things are supposed to flow, and how they need to flow, and how the market is ever changing from a financial standpoint, and being able to educate people on why things cost the way they do, and that you can't just make up a number. And you hit the nail on the head earlier about transparency. And so I really appreciated that compliment of you talking about how transparent I am, is because it's something that's very important to me. And I think that transparency is something that we do not see enough of in the wedding world, not just in the planning side of things, but through all vendors that we work with. There tends to be this mindset of you can't show all your cards, and that you can't tell people what you're thinking, and you can't tell people how you're strategizing or how you plan to help them or the business that you're in. And for me, transparency is the most valuable thing you can offer somebody, because at the end of the day, clients and brides and grooms, they just want to know the individual. They don't want to know the business. They don't want to know why you're doing what you're doing. They want to know you, and they want to know what it is that you can do for them in order to make them happy, and in order to make them successful. Everybody's got their own goals. And so for us, the struggle has been, educating people on, hey, like, this may be how it was done in the past, but that's not the best way to do it. So let me show you how the best way it is to do this. And so ways that we've combated this is going to conferences and having conversations with individuals in other markets, not reinventing the wheel. I think that so oftentimes as wedding planners, we feel like we're alone, especially in our own markets, where sometimes it may be a more competitive market, or you may be in a market where there may not be as much friendly people as you want, or you may be at the top of your market. That's something that that we've struggled with a little bit here too. Is that we, in the nicest way possible, without sounding like we have a big head, is we kind of emerged the top of our market, where we were rocking and rolling and we were providing a great service. But it got to a point of, well, what now? What can we do to grow? And who do we talk to about this? Because we are the educational standpoint. We are the educational foundation in our market at this point. And so for me, it was, taking the time and taking the finances, honestly, to go and be a part of different groups, whether it's, smaller local groups of wedding industry folks who get together to talk about the pros and cons and struggles and networking, or these bigger national organizations that a lot of wedding planners are familiar with, that do year-round retreats or year-round conferences that are focusing on these types of things. And it was those conferences, to me, that led to so much success, as I finally got a chance to go to a couple of them and talk to people outside of my market and ask them advice, and ask them, hey, this is what I'm dealing with right now. Have you heard of this? Have you dealt with this before? And you'd be so surprised on how many answers I got back of like, yeah, we dealt with that 2 years ago. Or maybe it's one of those things where I was talking to individuals like, yeah, we're dealing with that now, and here's our insight on it. What's your insight? And so I think, there's struggles, and there's going to be, things that happen for every individual and every business. But to me, it's how you deal with it, which leads to your success. And so I encourage people, again, listening, that if you are faced with an issue right now, or if you have an internal or external struggle, you don't have to do this alone. There are so many of us out there, and especially in our country, not only the world, that are working in this business. And so reach out to somebody and ask them for help. And that's been my biggest win, is being able to talk to other people in different markets and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with right now, or this is what I'm winning at right now. And what is your thoughts on this? What's your feedback? What can I learn from you? And what can you learn from me? And it's the exchange of ideas there that, allows us all to rise up and be successful together.
That's really powerful, Gavin. I remember Brian Tracy, motivational sort of guy, sales and productivity and whatnot. I remember him saying, it really just got in my head, basically if you're trying to do something, go find somebody that's done it well and get their
Hmm.
playbook. It's so
Right.
simple and so powerful. And I hear you speaking directly to this. You did it in the pre-interview as well. I asked you like what are the and I don't want to gloss over the fact that you just said in this modest amount of time, you have become one of the thought leaders and industry leaders like in this region. And it's not even like Gavin, I mean, you've been ambitious here. You're not just like I want to be, the best planner in a given city.
Right.
You're like, I am thinking regionally.
Hmm.
Um, and you told me, flat out, you're like, one of the things that's really helped me hack the growth and success that I've
Yeah.
gotten so far has been my willingness to talk to other people. Tell me a little bit more about that, Gavin. First of all, like the mindset that it takes to not just be like, I know everything, nobody can, I'm going to figure it all out myself, but
Yeah.
also just logistically, like what are the specific conferences that you went to
Yeah.
that helped you out a lot? What are the specific organizations? Like, let's get a
Right.
little tactical on this.
Yeah, and so for me, it started small. So it started locally. It started, luckily I was positioned in a place here in our city where I was managing a venue that a lot of planners and a lot of wedding industry leaders were
Mm.
coming through and doing a lot of great work at. And so I had that face to face time of getting to know them and getting to share my heart and listen to theirs. And so, I obviously started small with making friends and talking and creating a simple group message with some of these other wedding planners here in our city and just talking about small things like, hey, have you dealt with this band before, or have you had this issue, or hey, I'm looking to host this, do y'all have any feedback on a great vendor for this? So it really started small. And then too, as I was booking business and especially booking other vendors, I started communicating with them even more. So a lot of my success didn't maybe come from starting with individual planners. It was more so talking to vendors that my clients or myself may have hired. And so for me, this is the specific industry friend that really kind of jet set me forward is I was doing a wedding down in New Orleans. I had a client who was getting married down there, and so we were on the prowl for a very professional wedding photographer. And so I connected with this wedding photographer. We ended up hiring him for the wedding. He had been in the wedding planning, wedding world for a little bit longer than I have, but has really kind of had grown his business into a luxury, not only just in New Orleans, but across over to Dallas as well. And so with that event, after hiring him, I just kind of talked with him organically, like, hey, this is my business. This is what I'm doing. How did you as a photographer, get to where you're at? Do you have any tips for me? Do you think I'm any good, as a photographer who works with a lot of people? Do you see my business and do you value it? Do you think I should stick to where I'm at? Or do you think I have the chops to keep going and to go after my dream, or do I need to stay where I'm at? Because there are some people, and that's one thing I'll touch on for continuing on is, success isn't measured by how much money you make or how many clients you serve. Success is measured individually by what it is that your goals are for your business. Not everybody needs to be the Marcy Blooms and Mindy Wises and the Brian Raffinellis and the Todd Events and the Rishi Patels of the world. Those individual planners that a lot of us know serve a purpose and they do a fabulous job. But there still need to be planners for people who are have lesser budgets, or maybe people who need lesser of a service than this full design and service based industry. So for me, the photographer, I'll give him a shout out. His name's Matt Diaz, Mateo and Company. He is based out of Dallas, Texas now, and he was the first person and the first wedding industry friend to look at me and say, hey, Gavin, you have something. You're already killing the game at what you're doing, but you have so much more potential. And as a photographer, he said, I want to help you. I really think that we need better planners out there, and we need planners who have that drive that you have. And so he helped me get into the room and connect with some local planners down there in New Orleans who may have potentially served bigger markets and bigger budgets and bigger workloads. And so it was him that kind of connected me to those individuals. that kind of got my feet wet in the door and started having those conversations. And then individual conferences, I finally got a chance to sign up and go to Engage, which is probably one of the most
Nice.
popular wedding conferences here in the country. And so I got a chance to go over to Santa Barbara this past December and attend. I was one of maybe 3 or 4 Southeastern industry people that were even in attendance, which is crazy. And so, I think there was 2 other individuals from New Orleans, nobody else from Mississippi, nobody from Tennessee. I think maybe 1 person from Alabama. Like it's very rare. And so went over there with the mindset of, yeah, I'm looking to network, but I'm looking to learn. Like I have questions and I know that these individuals have answers. And it's those conferences and the organizers of those conferences who do a fabulous job, by the way. They position yourself and they put you in the right room with the right people. And everybody who's attending has this mind and has this ethics code of, we're all in this together. We're all in here to exchange information. We're all here to network. And so being able to go to that conference and ask questions and listen to these industry leaders who have been doing this for 30 years, some of them longer than I've been alive, and being able to take that information back. And also not only just from those information I got from people, but meeting people that were either on the same playing field as me or has a little bit more experience than me as well. So I would say going to that conference, being able to learn so much there, but then also being able to meet a lot of people there and kind of say, okay, well, how can I focus this in on a regional level? And so then a lady that I met there at the conference named Sarah Roshan, she's a photographer based out of Colorado. She is the founder of another organization called the Emerge Event Collective. And so they go around the country, doing dinners and events in different cities as a way to promote networking and learning opportunities with wedding professionals, not just planners, but photographers and lighting professionals and entertainment. And so from that connection of going over there just in December, it is 2 weeks past. I just hosted and designed. I got asked to host and design the first Emerge Event Collective dinner in the Southeast in New Orleans 2 weeks ago. So I got to launch and leverage my company, but then also launch and leverage my floral design company that we just launched. And so all that to say, from putting myself out there and flying over to Santa Barbara and being in a room full of people that I've never met before. But again, going back to that key word of being transparent and being confident in my business, I was able to talk to those individuals, take useful tips home with me, make meaningful connections of people who not only care about their business, but also care about the success of my business. And it translated to just less than a month later being asked to design and put on this dinner for this more regional group where I got to meet really the people who could really transform my business on a regional level down there in New Orleans. And so all that to say, it's kind of a fun success story of being able to look and say, like, I need to grow, I need to learn. There are things that I want to overcome in my business. And kind of what you touched on at the beginning of your question is going to chase and find those people who have answered it and rely on them to get you to the next level. And yeah, that was kind of a real life story that's happened over the last couple of weeks. And it's been tremendous to be able to take those conversations and enact them in my business just this last couple of weeks.
That's really powerful, Gavin. And, just to be clear, everybody's going to have their own path. And you kind of spoke to this. Like, for example, for you, you're leaning into this luxury, direction. So Engage makes a lot of sense. I went by the way, it's been over a decade, but it was amazing. Rebecca and Catherine over there. But mind blowing. Like, I'm like, why is there confetti falling from the ceiling and Goofy and the Mickey Mouse crowd are dancing? What's happening?
Definitely left inspired. Yeah.
It's just so, and the people that, that were there, just really extraordinary. But what you're speaking to is more encompassing. It's broader than just like Engage or the luxury path, like whatever path you're on. You tell me, I don't want to put words in your mouth that aren't really resonating and true to the heart of what you're saying, but like no matter what path you're on, what I see that's powerful here is tapping into the growth that can be unlocked by other people, right? Because we've all had such a tiny limited experience in this life, but now you're trying to do something. You're like, where are these people? I'll give a shout out to the Certified Wedding Planner Society for people that want to get their education. There's an amazing community. You don't have to go at this thing alone. Wedding MBA,
Yeah.
there's all sorts of regional organizations, but yeah, what a powerful, I feel like, and you can tell me if you see this a little differently, but as we think about really hacking significant growth in business, I feel like one of the most powerful levers any of us can pull is people.
Mhm.
Getting the right coaching so they plant, like that photographer that you mentioned. I mean, I got to get
Right.
him on the show. Like, that sounds
Yeah.
amazing. What would you say to people, Gavin, even if they're on a different path as a
Yeah.
planner? What advice would you give people to help them tap into this power of leveraging other people and their experience?
Yeah, I think for me it would be to find what it is you're looking to accomplish in your business first. I see so often that, people know, and people in industry, people in business, especially in the wedding business, they know that there are organizations out there, and they know that there are businesses out there, and there are people out there that want to help them, but you've got to be able to help yourself first before asking others to help you. And I think that's kind of something I do want to touch on as a point of, me going to these people isn't saying, okay, everybody, this is my problems, I need y'all to find the answers and help
Mm,
me crack them. It's being able
mhm.
to say, hey, I know that I have things I'm looking to accomplish. I know I want to accomplish them. I have the drive, I have the strength, and I have the knowledge to accomplish them. But there are certain things or certain dots that aren't connecting, and I need to figure out how to connect those dots. And so I think that for me, my piece of advice would be is know what it is you're asking for, and know what it is you're looking to accomplish first before going into those rooms and mingling with those people that you're hoping to get answers out of, because it's not their job to grow your business. It's your job to grow your business. It's your job to take care of your business and to marinate your business and to develop your business into what it is that you want it to be. But in saying all that is, you have to have the will and the drive and the worth ethic to put in everything that you're going to learn, but then also being transparent and being vulnerable enough to ask for help, and being vulnerable enough to do the research. Sometimes it doesn't have to be, just online. It's listening to a podcast like you're doing. It's taking the time out of your day to educate yourself, and taking the time out of your day to show that you care about yourself and your business. That is when you'll start to see those tires being rotated and those gears starting to shift. Is that you got to put the work in first, and then once you put your work in first, then let's look around the room and say, who can help me answer those questions and connect those dots, and who wants to be there to support my business. Because you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do life alone. The world can be a harsh place, let's be honest, but it also can be a loving place at the same time. So it's finding those right people, and to what we were just talking about, is finding those organizations that have really set themselves up and align with what your goals are in a business. There are, like, to your point, there's so many organizations out there and so many conferences and meetings and different groups you could be a part of. It's researching those groups and finding out which one makes the most sense for you and your business. There's some, like, Engage may not make sense for you because that may not be the
Right.
type of work you're looking to do. The Emerge Event Collective and networking with those individuals may not be the work you're looking to do. The wedding, the wedding MBA track. I know a lot of individuals who have went through that and have really had major success for it. But then there are some people who don't need what that is that's accomplishing. So it's finding your goals and painting the picture of your dreams first, and then once you've done that, going to find those resources that can help you get there.
And I think too, there's something else I'll have you speak to directly because it's kind of invisible, but in my mind, and you may not even think about it, but like Engage is a great example.
Yeah,
Engage is a pretty pricey ticket, and
correct.
what I kind of surmise here too is, not everything is going to be free. It's not like you paid any particular person for
Right.
advice at Engage, but it costs you to get the ticket and to make the arrangements to go there and to carve out the
Yeah.
time away from your business. Like, can you just talk a little bit about the mindset that you have around
Yeah.
being willing to invest and when you decide to
Yeah.
invest in things? Like, how do you think about that?
I think that's a very great point. Obviously, with all these types of networking events, there, for the most part, there is some sort of not only financial obligation but time obligation as well. And so for me, I have heard about a lot of these organizations for years and years, and I knew that it was something that I wanted to go to. But to my point earlier, is I had to make sure that I was ready to receive, and I was also ready to be in a position with my business to take what I learned and enact it. If I were to go to one of these conferences 2 or 3 years ago, it would not have been the right stage for my business, because at that point I was still trying to sort of figure out what route my business was going in. You know, your business should not be something that is just boom, snapped overnight and is what it is. It should forever, and I mean forever, be a something that is evolving and something that is growing and something that is shifting. Because if it's not, then you're not growing as an individual and your life isn't getting any better. And so for me to kind of looking at that investment opportunity, I knew that I had finally gotten to a point where I had maximized all it is that I could learn individually via online or via podcast or via local organizations. I knew that in order for me to achieve what it was that I wanted to achieve with my business, I had to look higher and I had to shoot higher and I had to invest higher. And so for me, to your point, is where our business is at, is we're looking to focus on a more detailed oriented client. And the level of service that we provide our clients is a full service. I mean, we do everything from A all the way to Z, sometimes even after Z, and that's the level of service that we want to provide. And so for us, the investment to go to engage and to be in a room of those wedding professionals who also have structured their business that way made sense, as opposed to some of my colleagues that are some of my very good friends in the wedding planning world. They do not want to offer that full service aspect. They want to focus maybe more on day of coordination or more on partial coordination or still on planning, but they still want to have that, honestly, that more of that, life to work balance. When you get into this realm of, and I know the word luxury is thrown around so often, and I'm very transparent in knowing that. But when you're getting into this luxury market, as we all like to say, it becomes a little bit more detail oriented. It becomes more time oriented. It becomes more stressful. It becomes more higher stakes, higher rewards. And not everybody wants to position themselves to be that way. And so I encourage everybody to look at their business and look and see what it is that makes their business successful to them. Are they accomplishing the things they want to accomplish? Are they serving the clients they want to serve? Are they getting meaningful relationships, and are they feeling that they have a purpose in what it is they do in their business? And then once you figure out what that is within your business, then that is when I encourage people to research organizations and research events that align with what they're looking to accomplish in their business. And for me and for my team, it was Engage. That was the conference that made the most sense. I have another conference I'm going to in April, where not only just focus on the planning side, but a big part of our business and how it's growing is we've launched the floral side. And so now we have gotten a little bit more intricate in the floor and the design part of it and the production part of the business. And so I've signed up in April to fly down to Mexico to participate in the Pillars of Production, which is a conference that's put on by Todd Events out of Dallas. He's a master of his craft in the event planning and the floral side world, because he owns his floral business and he's an event planner. And so for me, as somebody who's in this industry and who's trying to build a business, I'm looking at him as somebody who, hey, he's done this. He's in that same avenue. He's in the Southeast. He's in that same avenue of what I'm looking to do. And he's been doing it for years. I want to go learn from him, and I'm going to invest my time and invest my money to travel to go sit with him and his people that he recruits to come to this event and learn about how I can better my business, how I can better grow my business, and how I can be more successful. So I think all of those, play into effect of, you got to get your business in check first and figure out where all your eggs are in the basket, and then go figure out how to make those eggs hatch. And that's where you go to those organizations to do that.
I really appreciate this. Is one of the main things that I wanted to unlock in this interview, Gavin. And it's just like in my brain as I'm listening to you talk, I'm just like, check back in with this guy in 5 years, because you're on, like, I mean, obviously there's more we could talk about, but that alone is such a valuable growth strategy or just hack for business. It's like, there's this mantra that's very much in vogue now. It's who, not how. I know
Yep.
Russell Brunson, he went off script. He's like, he's doing this webinar I'm watching. He's like, you want to know the biggest impediment for most entrepreneurs? He's like, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to get right to the heart of it. He's like, you're an entrepreneur. You feel like I got to go get a website built, and then you figure out how to do that. And now I got to set up this, and I go figure out. He's like, instead of asking, how do I do this? It's who. It's tapping into people that know things that could
Right.
take you years, because these people, all of these people that you've referenced, they've got years of their own experience. So I hope people feel this sort of inspiration that I feel just listening for you, to you about like how to apply this to their business. I see the time flying, as it always does,
Yeah.
and there's one question. I didn't prep you for this. It's a challenging one, but I'm going to throw it out nonetheless. Based on all of your personal and professional experience to date, Gavin, if you could give only one piece of advice to everybody listening that would help them as much as possible in moving toward their professional dreams,
Yeah.
what one piece of advice would you share?
Dream big. I think dream and dream big. For me, when you're building a business and when you're starting a business, you can get so bogged down into the reality of what's around you and the reality of what's possible, especially depending on where you're at, and which market that it is that you're working in. And so my biggest piece of advice would be to dream and to think bigger and to think bigger than yourself, but also think bigger than your business. And without going into too much detail, it's being able to have those dreams and have something that you're looking forward to in your business. It's something that for me as an individual wakes me up in the morning every day of knowing this is where I'm at, this is where I want to be, and this is what I'm working towards. Not only, keeping things, on the boots on the ground with my clients every day, but for me as an individual personally, we're in a market where we are servicing other people and we are taking care of other people and their needs and their wants and their dreams. So my advice is you got to dream yourself as business professionals and as wedding professionals, as entrepreneurs, to what your point is, as we're all entrepreneurs in this. You've got to stay dreaming. You've got to stay looking towards the future. And it's that dream that'll take you from where you're at now to where you want to be tomorrow.
That is beautiful, Gavin. Yeah, Steve Harvey, I listen to some of his motivational talks sometimes. He says, your dream has to be bigger than your problems, your challenges, because it's going to be the magnet that pulls you through them. And on that list of things, dream as a planner, as an entrepreneur, just dream as a human being, right? I mean, you get one life as far as we know, like go big, don't limit yourself,
Yeah.
be the biggest, best, most beautiful version of yourself. I just feel like that's such a beautiful, and it comes through too, Gavin, in the way that you're approaching your business. Again, like just, I can see that there's like a vision going to engage, like having
Yeah.
this regional presence. So I think you're practicing what you're preaching here, which is really
Thank you.
cool. Um, for people that may want to get in touch with you, especially those that are in your region, Gavin, what is the best way for them to reach out to you if they just want to connect?
Yeah. So it's online via our website or our social media channels. It's just Gavin Snyder Events on all of those platforms. We are on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on the World Wide Web. So any of those avenues, you can find us. There should be a form or a way to contact us via any of those routes. So I really do encourage those. Again, practicing what I preach. If somebody's listening and they would love to connect more with me and my business and hear about how we do things, or if there's somebody who's listening who, is listening to what I'm saying, like, hey, I could help this guy out. Give me a call as well. Like I said, I never want to stop growing, and I never want to stop taking advice from people. And so, yeah, Gavin Snyder Events on all those different channels. We love to connect with people. We love talking with individuals. I think it's that camaraderie that makes all of this, worthwhile. So yeah, we'd love to connect. As you can tell via this podcast, I love talking and I love chatting and I love, especially talking about business as well, because I think we don't talk about it enough. And so, Eddie, I really appreciate the opportunity to come on here today to not only meet you and learn about the work that you're doing through this podcast, but also being able to hopefully, shine a light on some topics that may have not been shined on before, in hopes that somebody's listening to this and they're able to take what they've learned or hear something that sets off emotion or a dream of theirs, so that we all can have a successful wedding planning business. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, the pleasure's all mine, Gavin. Yeah, on behalf of our Timeline Genius community and all of our Wedding Industry Insider podcast listeners, I just want to say thanks for, again, being so open and sharing, your insights and experience. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much, Eddie. I appreciate it.